These images you will see are Mexico's everyday life since 2006 when President Felipe Calderón declared the war on drugs. Soldiers and policemen took the streets to fight the drug trade with guns. The criminals responded with military weapons, and this ignited a territorial war until now. Then, I was a normal journalist covering poverty issues. And before I knew it, I was covering mass murders and reporting about mass graves. Violence has changed my life, as well as the lives of millions of Mexicans. I interviewed people who had been tortured by the military and parents whose children had been summarily executed. I was contacted by terrified displaced families, incapable to pronounce what happened to them. I participate to group therapy sessions for orphan children, sharing their nightmares. Once, I met 30 women. They came to me with pictures of their missing sons. They wanted to tell their stories. At that moment, I thought I could not interview them. I was really painful, but I didn't. I chose this path during these years, looking for the missing people. As me, all of a sudden, we Mexican journalists have become war correspondents in our own country. When President Calderón's period finished, we counted 102,000 people killed. 27,000 have gone missing. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced, and an untold number have been wounded, crippled, orphaned, or widowed. Suddenly, with Enrique Peña Nieto's government, those figures magically disappeared. Violence went down. It was hidden as if by a hat trick. We understand that the main reason for this war is not drug trade, but territory. This war is about control, control of the population, control of information. More than 80 journalists have been murdered or disappeared in the last 8 years. They don't die in crossfire or because they step on a mine like they would in a traditional war. In Mexico, journalists are being hunted at their offices, on the streets, at their homes, in front of their families. For fear of losing their lives, dozens have abandoned their hometowns. They seek refuge in other states of Mexico or apply for asylum in other countries. Some of them used to be investigative journalists. Now, they sell hot dogs, mow lawns, or clean schools in the United States. The silencers have guaranteed impunity. The threats, torture, disappearance, attacks, and murders of journalists always go unpunished. In spite of this, Mexico's federal government announced in international forums that it has built a mechanism to protect journalists on law that turns into federal crimes every attack against journalists. But the law is only good on paper. In reality, we have proven that it doesn't work. In today's Mexico, doing journalism is like walking on quicksands. It is hard to know where the danger lies. In some areas, government officials are part of the organized crime, and when you interview them, you don't know who you are talking to. Corruption is the signature of this tragedy. Mexican reporters are trapped between several fires. The one imposed by drug lords who dictate the rules of coverage and punish those who do not comply, or government censorship, which buys the silence of the media to prevent investigative journalism, or censorship from owners of the media outlets who manipulate their information to avoid losing government privileges, thus becoming accomplices. Where the press is submitted to de facto powers, people lose their right to be informed and learn not to trust journalists. People died and nobody knows. There are no reports of the towns where bus passengers are randomly murdered, of the hundreds of young men who disappear on the highways or who are forcibly recruited by the drug cartels. While violence is magically disappearing from the news cycle thanks to a shift in government propaganda. In their desperation, people are using social media to tell the stories. Some citizens paid for this with their lives. When we, reporters, realized that we were alone, that the government won't protect us, we create solidarity and training networks, like the one I co-founded with other colleagues, called Periodistas de a pie, journalists on foot. We start by organizing courses to help us come back safely from covering danger zones, or encrypt sensible information, or techniques to be emotionally healthy, to keep our souls clean in such horrors. There were times when we became a crisis center, receiving calls from our colleagues in panic, begging for help because of a news report that upset someone. One of the SOS calls we received was for the disappearance of Gregorio Jimenez de la Cruz, a reporter from the state of Veracruz. He was kidnapped in February. 5 armed men pulled him out his house right in front of his family. That same day, brave journalists took to the streets, demanding the government to find him. All around the country, many protested in support. His body was found a week later. Gregorio was a common reporter. He made less than $2 per news report. He had several jobs because the money he earned was not enough to support his family. He had not health insurance nor labor rights. In the little town where he lived, he reported on the lack of basic services, troubles at bars, and kidnappings, a subject that someone tried to silence. Some journalists, in response to his death, traveled to Veracruz to research on his murder. For 3 days, we were locked in a hotel interviewing journalists who felt they were being watched by drug lords or powerful politicians who demand their silence. We prepared a report on the death of Gregorio to pull him out of the mass graves in which the silencers meant to keep him buried. We did what journalists know how to do and must do. We performed an investigation. That is what we want to keep doing, to bring life to the places where silence prevails, to make the duty of the silencers more difficult. What we need is to ensure that anyone who is being threatened can continue doing their work and don't have to leave the country. It's dangerous. By now, it's impossible to hide that in several areas of Mexico, narcopolitics is in charge. In the last month, we have just seen its most brutal phase, when a local police force attacked students. They killed 6 people. One was found flayed and without eyes. The police detained 43 others. Since then, they are missing. We know that these police agents handed them to a local cartel. Some versions say the students were burned alive, their bodies buried. Once again, I have to visit mass graves looking for bodies. I met parents crazy for the pain, searching for their sons. The Mexican state is searching too, but only more mass graves with more bodies are found. In just one day, were 28 bodies, not the missing students. No one knows who these people were. Those bodies are the clandestine graveyards of which Mexico has been filling, those that the local press cannot talk about it. They appear as if they were claiming for justice. In one of the recent crises was the discovery that the Mexican army massacred 22 young people. Their official report was that they were killed in combat, but in reality, they were executed. A journalistic research denounced the crime. Investigations as this changed the course of history, the human rights violations happening in my country. For this reason, this is what we need: independent investigative teams that bring light to the dark zones. Teams that research the crimes committed against the people. More colleagues to shout the names of the killers and to insist until impunity comes to an end. Investigate without fear of ending up in a ditch. This is not only about defending liberty of expression, it's about the citizens' right to be informed. This is our fight against silence. This is our fight for life. Thank you.